My name is Thomas Evans. They called me Tom Tom on the show, and I was a Soul Train dancer from 1980 to 1988.
You were the girl that changed my world. You were the girl for me. You lit the fuse. I stand.
Originally, I'm from Casablanca, Morocco, and I grew up in Monterey, California, Seaside, California. I graduated from Monterey High School. Where I grew up, there was a huge military installation called Fort Ord. The soldiers there, when they came back, African-American men, they had married French women, Korean women, German women. So my junior high school and high school I went to, it was like 50% black, 50% ethnic and white. So that's all I knew. I grew up in that era. I gravitated towards R&B music. We watched Soul Train religiously on Saturdays. I wasn't much of a dancer back then, but I loved watching the show. The music is what really moved me. Watching it, there was never a thought of being on the show. And then when I moved to Los Angeles, I'm out in front of my building one day and I see this cat walk by and I thought it was a DeBarge. His hair was all feathered out. I struck up a conversation with him, and it wound up being Marco, who had been a Soul Train dancer since the 70s. So we wound up becoming friends. One day he says, hey, why don't you come to a taping and let's see what happens. The next taping, I show up and I'm thinking, Marco's got me, I'm in. Now I was standing in line for hours, right? Standing in the heat. They were about to shut the gate, and it was a dancer at the time that was letting people in. I looked at him and I go, man, I've been here all day. And he looked at me and he goes, come on in. They shut the gate behind me. I walked into the studio, that I had been watching as a kid, and it was surreal. I can't even explain the feeling to you, how it felt. And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, wait till my boys see me now. It was just indescribable. Not in a million years did I even think about it. Just the happenstance of meeting Marco and then winding up being on the show for 8 years. What do you call that? You know what I mean? Is it divine intervention? I don't know. I had this little move where I used to go like this, and then Louis started calling it the Tom Tom, so you start seeing some other people do it. That was probably my signature dance move. In all honesty, I wasn't the best dancer. I just think I had a presence, and the way that I dressed and came across, I think more than anything else, that's what kept me going on the show. I recently retired right after 39 years and wore suits every day, and it was just a part of me. Since I retired, it's been more shorts and tennis shoes and stuff like that, but let me tell you, I was broke behind Soul Train, all right? Back in the 80s, I wasn't making that much money. I had just started out, so I was charging everything. I had some bad credit behind Soul Train, but you had to, if you wanted to show out, if you wanted to stand out. The majority of my style was either dressy or formal. Every once in a while, it'd be somewhat casual. We'd put on like red leather shorts and a red fringe jacket or something to switch it up. But for the most part, it was suits and ties, or it was tuxedos, bow ties, cummerbunds. I think maybe that's the look that caught the eye of like Chuck Johnson, who was the stage manager at the time, Pam Brown. I think that more than my dancing or anything got me up on the risers, getting to go down the Soul Train line. More than anything, I think that's what it was. Some really memorable performances on Soul Train for me were when Vanity was on there. Everybody was kind of like, at least the guys were, I was on a side riser. I don't think I danced. I think I just watched her. When Luther sang House Is Not a Home a cappella, and then, ad-libbed at the end, it gave you goosebumps.
Still in love with me. Yeah.
It was amazing listening to him sing that close, being that close to him. And then when the hip hop guys started coming in, LL, DMC, Beasties, it was a whole different vibe then. I feel very fortunate that I was there during that time. The Soul Train line was one of the most exciting parts of the show because it's where you get to show off your individuality, right? If you're doing something they like, the camera might stay on you 20, 25 seconds. You always made an effort to try to show out. At lunchtime, me and Ski, we would get together and do routines. You know, we'd make stuff up, and sometimes we'd make them up right before the line. Those always seemed to come out well. We had a lot of fun. But one that stands out was I set him up. I put him in a pair of skis so he couldn't move. And so he started the line off and he's doing his thing, right? I snuck up behind him and smashed him in the face with a pie, and he wasn't expecting that. So I heard a lot about that from other people. He took it in stride, you know, he knew it was all good. It all came from a good place. We just did so many. Like, we'd bring out a telephone, we'd do props. We had Otis, the guy that would wear all the costumes. We'd include him in the skits, and that's the kind of stuff we used to do. I would go down the girls' line regularly, or try to. Sometimes I just would walk through, grab a girl's arm and just walk, not even dance. There was one where I had my overcoat on and one girl took the overcoat off, the other girl was dancing next to me. Just anything to be different, to, you know, kind of stand out a little bit. It was just a good, creative, great time. Personally, the way I looked at it was I never expected to get paid. I never thought about it. I thought it was a privilege and an honor to be on that show. I thought for every dancer that was on that show, there were probably hundreds that wanted to be on there. So money was never an object. You know, being there, getting to dance on the show, being recognized out on the street, signing autographs, and go back to work the next day. That was plenty for me. I had a fantastic 8 years on that show. I had no complaints, no bad memories, and for me it was just time. I had my career, you know, work was getting more and more involved, promotions, that kind of thing, so to me it was a really good time to go. You know, I wasn't there too long, at least I felt that way. You know, I was still getting put on risers, I was still going down the line, so for me it was like going out on top. My overall experience on that show was fantastic. I mean, those 8 years of my life were so memorable and so special. I never ever took it for granted. I always felt grateful to be able to have that experience, and you know, if I could go back and do it again, I wouldn't even think about it.